So basically, many economists, policymakers, demographers uh, increasingly argue that birth decline is one of the defining issues of our generation, though it's often overshadowed by more visible crises like climate change and AI disruption. Birth decline isn't just about fewer babies, it's about long term sustainability of societies. Every major system we rely on, the economy, healthcare, education, welfare, assumes that there will be a next generation to support the previous one. So,
Yeah.
unlike wars, recession, pandemics, population decline unfolds slowly and silently. But once it reaches a certain point, it's almost irreversible. There's never been any proof that it's been reversible before. Even though some countries are trying to do it now. I think it was in Poland as well. They have like a thing where it's like if you have two or more kids,
Yeah.
you have no tax up until like 140k or something like that for parents. In 1950, the global fertility rate was about 5.0 children per woman. As of 2025, it's around 2.3, near replacement level, but it's fallen fast. Over 60% of the world's population live in countries now where it's below replacement fertility. So East Asia, really low replacement level, which people would be shocked about that because if you look at East Asia, you might like think about Thailand and Vietnam, and you think about kids running around everywhere, and you think about kind of South America as well. You think about like uh, you know families in favelas with like 6 and 7 kids and stuff like that. Like that's the perception we have in our
Yeah.
mind, but the data doesn't actually suggest that. Europe as well, Japan, South Korea, Germany, Italy, these are all places where it's like really, really bad. Within a generation or two, most of the world will face population aging and eventually decline, something humanity has never experienced on this scale. And then I'll just go into a couple of the reasons why it's detrimental. So first you have economic collapse. Risk anyway, if it gets
Yep.
too low. So fewer workers means lower productivity, means slower growth for a country. Pensions and healthcare systems fail as fewer young people pay for elderly to basically have pensions. Shortage of nurses, caregivers, and doctors. Empty schools because there's no kids. Ghost towns. Collapse in property markets. You see this in Japan, right, where they've closed down schools, they've closed down entire rural towns. There's loads of just empty houses all over Japan, because them kind of little rural areas just can't survive then. So rural regions disappear entirely. A collective loss of optimism when societies stop believing in a future worth building. Some demographers call this demographic fatalism, the quiet acceptance of decline. Why it's so hard to fix? Even with generous policies like free childcare, parental leave, financial bonuses, no country has sustainably raised fertility back to replacement level once it fell below 1.5. Ireland is at 1.5 now. I think England is close to that as well.
Yeah.
Because birth rates are no longer just about money, then they become about culture and identity and all that things. People marry later and not at all. I know we have, I think in the last 30 years, the amount of people getting married has reduced by 50%. We're at an all-time low of people getting married. Social media and urban life replace community networks. Parenthood is seen as stressful, expensive, or optional. In many societies, optimism about the future has faded. Like whenever I talk about this online, I'll often get like people in comments saying things like, "Why would I bring a child into this society?"
It's a good point though.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be a, an anti-natalist type. Like I'd be very much a pro-human. Like
Yeah,
but we'll get into that. I have questions that I want to ask you to kind of to touch on that
yeah, for
basically
sure.
in a philosophical standpoint. So it's not just an economic issue; it becomes a civilization one. Um, and what else did I want to go? So I wanted to talk to you about then essentially thinking about it from a social standpoint as well, right? So the shift from collectivism to individualism. So in traditional societies, life purpose was, collective, centered around family, faith,
Yep.
community, tribes.
Yep.
People would marry young, they'd have children, and saw parenthood as a part of their duty for something larger than themselves. In modern culture, by contrast, we prize individualism and self fulfillment,
Yep.
success, happiness, identity, freedom, defined personally rather than communal. So, parenthood, once a default milestone, has become one choice among many, often postponed in favour of education, travel, and personal growth.
Mhm.
Which I think to a degree there's truth in both of that. Like you
There's
should be able.
shades of grey there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in the past, life's meaning was found in raising the next generation. Today, many seek meaning within themselves. So then my question for you then, and touching on everything that I just spoke about there, do you think prioritizing individual happiness over collective responsibility has made society stronger or lonelier?
It's made society, right? So if we're talking about society as a whole thing, it's made society lonelier, yes, but it's made subsectors of society. So let's say we break society down into sub-tribes happier as well as individuals. Now, the overarching premise is, well, responsibility,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of people will prioritize happiness and they think then that happiness is a lack of responsibility, whereas most people actually derive their happiness from having responsibility as an individual. So yes, I do think it's a net negative, but by the same token, it's very, very tricky, right? Because you've got to understand that if you get put between a rock and a hard place, you don't really have a decision to make, right? So, going back to the argument that you previously mentioned, which was, okay, look, why would I bring a child into this world? To
Hmm.
be honest, bro, that's my argument.
Hmm.
Why would I bring a child into this world? Not because I can't raise it, but
Hmm.
because me raising it is not the only factor I have to now consider. I have to now consider other people raising my child on my behalf, right? So that makes it very, very difficult for you to actually engineer and bolster society and culture in a positive way, right? Because, for example, they've just passed a law in California where a child can consent to a sex change without the approval of the parents, right? So, in that situation, it's like, wow, okay, well, then what happens to parenthood? So, I would say the biggest kind of pivot point there would be parentalism. To
Hmm.
put it bluntly, it's you're kind of kneecapping people's ability to parent,
Hmm.
right? And you're kind of saying, okay, well, let the government or let the powers that be parent my kids instead. In turn, what you're doing is you're popping out babies that are going to turn into fucking robots.
Hmm.
So it is a rock and a hard place. Do I think it is beneficial for society for us to have less kids? No, it is like objectively not. But by the same token, when someone says to me, I don't want to have kids, it makes total fucking sense.
Hmm.
There has to be drastic, exponential change higher up the chain of command in order to give people the freedom to actually raise their kids and bolster civilization and society.
Hmm.
Because then you have to look at society itself. Is this society me and you want to live in? Right? And the answer more often than not is no, right? We don't want digital IDs. We don't want X, Y, and Z. So it gets very, very tricky
Yeah.
because how am I going to raise my kid without the influence of these sorts of malignant natures and malignant forces having their hand where they shouldn't have it,
Hmm.
right? Kind of like you putting your hand down, up a girl's skirt in the middle of a nightclub. It's just not right. You know what I mean? So it's a very tricky one because, yeah, you're right. It is detrimental to society, but I would also say this society and not necessarily the people, us,
Hmm.
have engineered it to make it so. And then what's happened is governments, for example, Poland and such like that, have seen a rapid decline in birth rate. And now they're going, have more kids. Come on, have more kids. And it's
So
like,
I
people don't
suppose
know.
the ethical question then becomes like, is it ethical to bring up children in a world that are facing all these, uh, terrible things, whether it's, you know, moral culture being morally wrong in ways, whether it's war. I mean, like we've seen horrendous things go on through the years.
Yeah.
Whether that's the rise of Nazism, whether it's Stalin, whether it's Mao, whether it's all these terrible things. But is it more ethical to continue humanity regardless of the conditions that society is in?
The correct and most sustainable solution would be to continue society, yes.
Yeah.
But if you've been put in a position which is like, I want the circus to continue, so we need to catch more lions,
Mm,
it doesn't mean it's right. So it is a what I call a ethical gray area
yeah.
because I do not blame someone for saying, look, I don't want to raise a child in this.
Oh, no, I think I 100% understand. I understand the fears and concerns and the nihilism about the future. But I also think that you're almost it's almost a dichotomous thinking in a way, is
Yep,
it not? Because it's like, well, yes, these are issues that need to be resolved. Like, that is a ridiculous law to be putting through, and we should fight against that law, and we should fight against immoral thinking in many different ways. And also, two things can be true, that we also should probably have a responsibility to continue on society.
exactly. And that is the dichotomy.
Yeah,
And there is a way through, but the way through has been made so difficult.
yeah.
Again, I'll highlight the powers that be. It's been made so difficult by whatever sinister cabal is behind the Iron Curtain because it's like, okay, you know what? I'll bring a child into this world if I had enough resources to prevent the overreach of people who are not part of my family unit. You
Mm,
see what I mean? So people who are, let's say, extremely wealthy, right? They can go, for example, Elon Musk say, I'm going to homeschool my kid,
yeah.
right? And I'm going to give him everything he needs, and I'm going to socialize him, in this way, etc. Which is exactly what you should do. Kids need to be socialized, etc. That's the whole premise, in my opinion, of school. That's the only benefit it can bring now because the education system is broken, right? So there is a way through, but
Well, even Elon isn't immune to this, because he's had plenty of kids, and I think one of his kids ended up transitioning through the
yeah,
woke
and
virus.
he got scratched by that woke mind virus, and he was
Yeah.
furious about it.
So
He's going
so
to
even
swear.
I think even the rich are not going to be immune to suffering from
Nope.
society.
Exactly. And that's the tricky part. It's like the correct course of action is the only way out is through, to quote Ryan Holiday.
Mhm.
But by the same token, a lot of people can't actually get through. Do you know what I mean? So it makes it very tricky. Now, the problem is the support system you need and the network you need is not from immediate family, and it's not from government subsidies either. Giving people benefits doesn't make them better parents. It doesn't create better individuals for society necessarily, right? If we're looking at it from a more free market capitalist perspective, right? But by the same token, you do want to continue the population. But this is if we had to zoom out, do a Miyamoto Musashi and take a distant view of close things, right? The overarching premise is, well, the engineered downfall is necessary in order for higher powers to actually see that what they're doing is backward, right? So, for example, if digital ID is a really simple example, people know it's wrong, right? But let's say they buy into it. That's going to extend the bravery of people being able to introduce more policies similar to that.
Hmm.
Then it gets to an impasse, right, where people just absolutely revolt. Very good example is Ireland, right? Ireland are kicking off at the moment about a bunch of things, which is a good thing, right? So there's the distant view is, well, this decline, almost in the sounds slightly nihilistic, needs to happen in order for the people who've kind of, what's the word, fostered this to actually see, holy shit, it's working against us and not for us.
Mm.
So it's very tricky. It's a very good question, and it's a very complex one that can't be unpacked with a yes or a no.
No, I don't think so. That's why it's a very unfair question to be like, all right, well, there's no nuance to this. There's so much nuance to this. Another question I wanted to ask you, which was probably a bit of a thought provoking one, would be, if automation and AI can replace human workers, does population decline still matter, or is there more to civilization than just economics?
No, population decline does still matter because what will happen is in turn you'll get less innovation, less creation, and less creativity in turn. Making society more gray. When it's more gray, people are more depressed, people are more down, a lot more people take their lives. We can already see this happening,
Mm,
right? So with AI, subsidizing human work, yeah, is going to be a huge contributing factor to population decline, and it's going to actually cause a bigger issue further on down the line. So a lot of us are looking at the source of the well upstream, but not the mouth of the river. The
very
mouth
true.
of the river is where it's at. And if you look at the mouth of the river, less people, less innovation, less opportunities for a Beethoven to come through, or a Picasso, or a Van Gogh, you know,
100%.
um, or I don't know, a thought leader like Steve Jobs, for example. Less of those will happen because overall, less people are being produced. In turn, decreasing the quality of society tenfold,
Yeah.
right? And in turn, that'll have a knock-on effect with regard to the developmental speed of AI too, right? Because there's going to be less people being able to program and push and accentuate its reach and its ability. There is a caveat to that, which is, well, what happens if AI can just do it itself?
And it probably will, but my thing would be okay. Well, you're actively choosing to replace more people with more robots.
Yeah. And if you do that, well, you're going to get less people in the workforce. Less people in the workforce earn less, live shorter spans of time, just in general, because let's say they don't have access to healthcare that's privatized or
Or just
specific.
essentially be, um, you know, like eventually there'll be just no need for humans whatsoever because, I mean, what would be our purpose? Like, we're just
Exactly.
deciding to swap out more and more families and kids and people for, that's okay. AI can do that. That's okay. AI can look after healthcare. AI can look after this. AI can look after this. Well, what is the actual point or function of humanity anymore? What are
That's
we?
exactly the thing. And
What
you're
are we
right.
needed?
And
We just
yeah, you're
get
just going to
pushed out.
ossify and dissolve. And
Yeah.
the irony of that is, if you look at a match, right, it has a stick and then it has the catalytic edge, which is like sulfur, right? The top bit of a match.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, if human beings are completely depleted, you're missing the lighting part of the stick. And what I mean by the lighting part is the actual stick itself. So you'll have the catalyst of AI being able to innovate, create, and all this kind of stuff. For who?
Hmm.
For who? No one's going to be there, bro. You know what I
And
mean?
you know what else I actually I don't have this bit written down. Sorry, that's someone trying to ring me. I don't have this bit written down, but like we see the social eruption that's going on all around Europe, right? And one thing with population decline is that, like, if you look at places like Italy and Germany, where it's really really bad and it's really really low, what their one of their solutions for this is, oh well, we'll just bring in more immigrants.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, does culture still mean anything?
This is the thing, is culture always has meaning. But if you choose to destroy its value and destroy its meaning, you're undermining more than just culture,
Mhm.
right? You're undermining people, humanity in general, right? So there was something I saw really interesting on Instagram, which was someone posted a reel being like, a bunch of people were saying, white people have no culture. White people have no culture. There is no culture for white people, blah, 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 blah. And then it just went to a shot of Picasso, Michelangelo,
Yeah,
Christianity, Vikings, Bluetooth, all these sorts of things. Like, what do you mean we have no culture?
yeah,
You
art,
see what I
like,
mean? So it's asinine because if you do that, then what you're going to get is a uh, a monotone culture. Everything's going to be the same, but by the same token, anyone who wants to think differently, you're going to get told population, they're going to be chopped down. So
mm,
innovation, creation, thought leaders, growth is going to stagnate and just hit a fucking impasse. A brutal impasse, and it's going to hit an impasse, and it's not going to be a pleasant one because it's going to happen so quick. Now, what I mean by it's happening so quick is I'm referring to the Matthew principle, which is if you do more, more is given to you. So, what I'm essentially referring to is you'll see, okay, decline, 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 and then impasse. No creativity, no innovation, no nothing. And then what do you get, right? You get parents who then go, well, AI can do this, AI can do this. So, what kind of virtues are they going to be able to instill into their kids? Son, I worked 6 days a week picking up trash bags to make sure I could provide for you, not to gaslight your son, but to teach them about a work ethic or something along those lines. Now all of a sudden everything is, let's say, automated. It's like, well, son, everything was automated. Okay, well, what like virtues and characteristics can you teach me from that? Well, I don't know. Ask ChatGPT, mate. You
Let
know,
me talk to you about religion because you'll enjoy this one as well. So this is
love
another
it.
cultural kind of dynamic to population decline. So the decline of religion and traditional family norms. For centuries, religion reinforced marriage, family, and childbearing as a sacred duty. As society became more secular, these norms weakened. Without moral and spiritual imperatives to be fruitful, family formation became a pragmatic question of lifestyle and affordability.
Yep.
Highly secular societies like Japan, Sweden, and Germany were among the first to see fertility collapse. Meanwhile, strongly religious communities such as Mormons, Orthodox Jews, and devoted Muslims continue to have far higher rates of fertility. The question then becomes: has the decline of religion given people more freedom, or has it left a moral and emotional void around family and purpose?
Emotional void.
Yeah, I think so.
Easy. Yeah, there's no shades of gray there, mate.
Yeah,
It's very simple and very easy because without like faith, let's use faith instead of religion because I prefer that in my
yeah,
opinion. Without faith, right, there's so many things that just can't come to fruition. It's just a physical impossibility, right? Let's say you're a single mom, you have 3 kids, you don't know how you're going to get through it. I'm walking on faith here. You're much more likely to go through the dark tunnel than you are if you're just like, oh, well, pragmatically speaking, this isn't going to work. You know
mm,
what I mean? And in turn, as that mother does that, she becomes more resilient, stronger, more enlightened, and so on and so forth. And it also goes down the route of, well, individualism. Well, what's higher than the individual? Faith, God. And if you don't have that, well, then you're only subservient to yourself. And if you're only subservient to yourself, that can only get you so far. So the answer there is clear and cut and dry.
mm. Yeah, very true. We have built a culture that celebrates personal autonomy yet undervalues interdependence. The paradox, people have never been freer to have children, yet have never chosen to have fewer. So do you
Yeah.
think modern freedom encourages fulfillment, or do you think too much choice makes it harder for people to commit to things like family?
I think we're spoiled for choice for sure.
Yeah,
Unequivocally, I think we're spoiled for choice. But I think we also get very twisted and confused with conflating happiness with no responsibility.
yeah, yeah,
The happiest I've ever been is when I'm responsible for helping someone else.
yeah,
When someone's like, Ryan, I'm not feeling great, I'm like, fucking yes, let me get to work.
yeah,
And I derive a lot of fulfillment, joy, and satisfaction from that. You'll always find you'll be much, much happier thinking about others
yeah.
and how to help others than you do think about yourself, right? So
I
people,
seen a great thing where I just read it before I came on. It was like community is inconvenience. If you want perfection, you're going to be very very lonely because being around people or looking after people, it is inconvenient. Even
yeah,
if it's like the friend who texts you too much or chews too loud or like all these things and people are community, and you have to deal with that inconvenience.
yeah, and you have to develop virtues, characteristics,
Mhm.
traits. These are the traits, virtues, and characteristics one needs to develop in order to become a more wholesome individual,
Yeah,
right? Because if you just develop characteristics and traits that are like easy to pick up, well, they're not really that virtuous, are they, mate? You know what I mean? It goes back to the old saying, which is, well, I'm a good person. Well, why are you good? Well, I've done nothing bad. Have you ever had an opportunity to do anything bad? No. Well, then you're not good. You're just a fucking coward.
mm,
You haven't been tempted.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So, it goes down to, well, you'll just have a bunch of people who are more disingenuous and less virtuous because they're going for the low-hanging fruit,
yeah,
and all of us know this, especially coaches, which is the harder something is, the more rewarding it is once it's completed.
yeah.
So if something's super easy and everyone can do it, does that make you feel special, individual, that growth has occurred? No, not at all. It doesn't. So it comes down to like, well, what is true virtue? And true virtue is not developed in comfort, it's developed in the crucible of discomfort and learning how to adapt and deal with other people. People go, well, what about immigration, Ryan? Why don't you want to deal with them? Because I don't, because I know, right? And there's a certain line, and the line is very clear for me, right? I don't need Sharia law in frickin' Norway. Sorry, bro. I don't need it.
Let me give you another uh, inner look to this population decline. So, changing sexual and dating cultures. So, sex and reproduction are now entirely separate. Contraception, abortion access, and hookup culture means sex rarely leads to children. Meanwhile, people are dating and marrying later, and many describe dating fatigue. Endless options but little connection. Digital life also plays a role. Social media and dating apps create superficial contact but fewer lasting relationships. In Japan, South Korea, and even the US, surveys show record numbers of young adults have never had sex before their 30s. Without relationships, the path to parenthood simply disappears.
Totally true.
It
Like,
is, isn't it?
yeah, it's just true. And you got to remember, like, when you look at any fall of any empire, any great civilization, it all stemmed from, okay, let's just buy into hedonistic win,
Yeah.
right? Instead of deep connection and going through the shit with your partner, right? Instead, it's like, oh no, we argued, fuck this. Nope. It's like, no, we argued, but we're going to figure this out, you know? And again, society is starting to breed more morally, excuse everyone for listening to this, but it's the truth, more morally weak people. So when something's inconvenient or when something's tricky, I'll just cut and run because I have another option. But what does that do? It prevents the depth of the connection occurring in the first fucking place.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like my best friends are my best friends because we've had disagreements, or because they've told me deep shit, or because there's been tricky times in their life where I've had to be there for them, or vice versa, right? That develops the depth of the friendship. Not, everything's good. Oh, well, now everything's shit. Okay, I'm just gonna fuck off. You know what I mean? Where's the virtue in that? Where's the genuine strength in that? You have to know when something's not good for you, of course. But by the same token, just because something isn't making you happy right now, it doesn't mean it's not good for you in the long term. Think about exercise. You know what I mean? Exactly the same principle. Fucking hate it when you're in there, but I
Yeah.
guarantee you won't feel worse for coming out of the gym.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. The consumer lifestyle. So in modern consumer culture, identity revolves around choice, success, and comfort. Children see through the lens. Children seen through that lens represent a major lifestyle cost, time, money, and freedom. The media often portrays parenthood as stressful or limiting, while travel, career, and self optimization are celebrated. This has created a subtle value shift. People invest in themselves rather than in their future generations. Parenthood becomes not a duty, but a luxury project, and one many feel they can't afford. Do you think consumer culture has made people too focused on self interest to value
Yes and
parenthood?
no. And the point I'll make here is, for example, self-investment, right? Why do you invest in the self? Simple. You want to be a better version of who you are, so you can be a better version of who you are for the people you care about.
Hmm.
Look at a mother trying to lose weight. Look at a dad trying to get healthy, right? I'm investing in myself so I can be a better father or a better example to those around me. You see, so it is tricky because self-optimization is not a bad thing,
No.
but it's a bad thing when the self-optimization is only there for the self.
Hmm.
Because you're optimizing yourself, not just for you, but to make sure that you are the best version of yourself so you can give it to others, and the more you can give to others, the better you feel, aka the Matthew principle as well.
Mm. Where I see it in terms of modern consumer culture is, I completely agree with what you say there as well, and I don't think it should be black and white, but I think you'll see a lot of the travel influencers on TikTok, and a lot of the times they'll
Yeah.
often put up things like let's say they're on a beach in the Bahamas, right, and they're like, couldn't do this if I had kids at home, and it's more like you know kids would ruin me having my fun versus me being on this beach in the Bahamas. And what you don't see with that, like, 45 or that 15-second TikTok clip is, well, I can guarantee you, even if they're in paradise, a lot of these people are probably more lonely than
Yep,
they'll portray. And
100%.
instead of being, honest with themselves, they'll project by saying, "Look at me, how much fun I'm having because I don't have kids," while also trying to shame that kind of mother at home who's looking after her two kids, or that
Yep.
father who's out working to make a living so he can put food on the table for them. And okay, while they don't have as much luxury, they do have purpose.
They have purpose and they also have a level of fulfillment that can't be replicated from a beach in Bali, mate.
Yeah,
It just can't, right? So you're right. You're seeing a 15-second highlight reel, but you go look at a mother who's raised a child and now let's say they're out the home and they've grown up. Think of the memories in the highlight reel. And it's a very simple and easy way to notice that. Go speak to a mother who's raised, let's say, two or three or more kids. When the house is empty, they feel lonely
yeah,
because of that hell of a journey they've been on with their kids.
yeah,
So you are right. I think the problem there is, yeah, you can say, oh, I've got the freedom to do this and this and this. Awesome. But being a mother or being a father or being a parent is just as beautiful, if not more.
yeah,
You'll definitely derive more fulfillment from it. I guarantee that,
yeah.
right? Does it come with more challenges? 100%. But challenge and fulfillment go hand in hand.
And it's also, I don't want to be too pro one side as well, because there is people who never wanted to have kids and have lived unbelievably fulfilled lives. And,
Yeah.
maybe it is in your path to, travel the world and see every single country and have the most unbelievable adventures and find real fulfillment out of that. I think that's true. But I
Mm.
don't think it's true for a lot of people. I think a lot of people see other people, going abroad and saying, "Oh, I need to do that as well," because they are caught in that consumer lifestyle. Like, oh, I see that person going to Costa Rica. I need to go to Costa Rica. And
Yeah.
then they get there and they're like, huh, how come I'm still not happy?
Exactly. Because I think they're looking for a deeper purpose in the wrong place.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
But it's harder. I think it's harder to actually find that in. It's harder to find someone, have a family and settle down, especially in this economy as well, with the cost of living, than it is to probably make some money and get a flight to Costa Rica.
Oh, it's much harder, but
Yeah,
the reward is much greater.
yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. And it's so many people, as I said, go for low-hanging fruit. Like, look, I haven't got kids and I get to travel. Okay, awesome, sweet. But do you think I look at a mom and I think, oh my God, you're so trapped?
Yeah,
I look
yeah.
at it, I go, you are an absolute beast. You are braver and tougher than I ever could be.
Mhm.
I admire that. I genuinely admire that, right? Because it is such a selfless thing you're doing. It's a sad reality. It's almost alien to me. It's like, wow,
Mhm.
like what an amazing feat you've undergone and you're undergoing. So I think the problem there lies in kind of like that Spider-Man meme where one person's pointing at them and the other person's pointing back. And it's like, no, you've got your outliers, right? Some people who will never have kids and do want to travel the world and so on and so forth, and that's okay. But by the same token, don't get it twisted. Having kids, having a family in the nuclear home is one of the most, if not the most beautiful thing possible. If you can actually have control of your own sphere.
Yeah,
But then when hands come in from outside, it's like, well, now I'm kind of under the thumb here,
yeah.
and that makes it a lot harder for parents, which again, in the most ironic sense, is the most beautiful thing when people do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because society has tried to make it harder for families, and still
Yeah,
they've
exactly. Let's try to make it
overcome.
harder.
Yeah,
And the hard part there is like, well, if you're going to make it harder and people are still going to go through it, when are the powers that be going to learn?
yeah,
And I don't actually have an answer for that.
yeah. Um. Well, that's why I always say, especially in Europe and in Ireland, that the government aren't pro family because they're trying to
No,
do everything in their power to make it more difficult for families, and they're trying to take all the power and give it to government rather to give it to families and local councils, which
but even if they were pro-family, it wouldn't be pro-family for the sake of family. It'll be pro-family to bolster the economy, or
Yeah.
pro-family to make sure we can get more people in the workforce.
Yeah, true.
There will be an ulterior Machiavellian motive. And the harsh reality that people do not understand about politics is they are not there to serve you. And that's exactly what they should be there for. They're there for the exact inverse reason, to serve themselves.
Yeah, true.
That's the
Let me
brutal reality.
let me quickly move on to involuntary childlessness, because this obviously is a downstream issue from everything that
Yeah.
we spoke about in terms of culture, in terms of worries about the future, in terms of the economic decline makes it a lot more difficult for people to have children. So involuntary childlessness in the UK. So around 1 in 5 women in the UK born in the mid 1970s reached the age of 45 without having children. For younger generations, it's happening even more. Half of women born in 1990 were still childless at 30. Many of those women did want children, but life circumstances got in the way. Not always choice. I pulled up a study there yesterday. I don't have it on me now, but it was like 10% of women in Ireland who didn't have children by whatever age, I think it was 40, chose not to have children. Therefore, the other 90%, it happened due to other circumstances, basically. So it wasn't
Yeah.
actually their choice. For men, around 1 in 4 over age 42 don't have children. Some chose that, but others said it wasn't by choice. Simple takeaway: more people in the UK than ever before are reaching middle aged without having kids, and many did not plan it. How people feel about this. Studies and support groups show that people who wanted children but couldn't have them often feel grief, sadness, and loneliness, especially as they get older. Some describe it like mourning a life that never happened. People who are childless by circumstance, not by choice, often feel forgotten or misunderstood by society. Involuntary childlessness can cause long-term emotional pain, not just because of not having kids, but because it affects identity, belonging, and purpose. There's usually not one single reason. It's a mix of timing, relationships, money, health, status, culture, all the things that we spoke about. Biggest reasons though, so not finding the right partner. This is the biggest reason for women in their 30s and 40s who wanted children but didn't have them. Many people spent years in education or careers and simply didn't meet someone suitable in time. I think that's a huge issue in society, right? It's like, you know, obviously it was a great thing to give women um what was it? What was the name of it when they basically gave women the right to go to further education back in the 70s? I can't remember what it was. Title 9, I think it was. But essentially, right. So women eventually got the opportunity, the gate opened for them to pursue education and
Yeah.
therefore then pursue careers. And I don't think anyone's saying that we should go back to the 60s when they when they shouldn't be they should just
Yeah.
stay in the kitchen. Nobody's saying that. I am not saying that for any of the feminist Nazis if they want to come after me. I am not saying that. But every action has a reaction,
Yep.
and a fatal consequence of women absolutely dominating education and dominating careers and being far better than men in so many different ways, especially in terms of learning and reading and writing. I think they perform far better in the classroom. The byproduct of that is that they held out on having kids till later in life, and you know then fertility becomes an issue. You might meet someone when you're younger, and because you went out but you never committed to marriage and kids, maybe the relationship fizzled out. Maybe then you met someone who was a really good match for you, but after 30, it gets harder and harder to conceive. So I think them kind of situations become more and more prevalent in society now, whereas that people have the women have the option of further education and climbing up the corporate ladder, and that means they need to take time out from starting a family, or feel pressured to take time out from starting a family to focus on career first. Where I would be of the opinion that because we're living longer and longer, I think that schools should probably have when like schools are supposed to be teaching sex ed, but one thing that they don't speak about is like that they do everything in their power to prevent kids from getting pregnant.
Yeah, they make
That
it so
that
boring.
that's the biggest fear. It's like, mate, this is how you put a condom on a fucking banana. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but nobody in the education system talks about, well, which is the actual real prevalent problem of society now, is that well, this is the real impact of waiting longer and longer to have children. Your percentage, your chances of getting pregnant, like drastically start to
Diminish.
reduce.
Yeah. That is true. I think that's definitely a contributing factor, like a big contributing factor, don't get it twisted.
Mhm.
But I think one of the biggest, it's a benefit as well, obviously. But one of the biggest dangers to society is not female education, but the birth control pill,
Yeah.
right? Because that enabled, and this is going to sound very sexist, but that enabled women and men to essentially buy into the hedonistic whim of sexual gratification,
Yeah.
rather than being a bit more poignant at picking your partner.
Well, this was the
Right.
thing back in the day. It was like you didn't have sex till after marriage because
Exactly.
the consequences of getting pregnant before you were married were very, very
Dire.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think the birth control pill is definitely good and it's definitely useful and it's definitely got its place and it is definitely important, right? It's a huge, huge step, but people do not realize that that in and of itself will be one of the main precursors for the downfall of society in terms of population, for sure. Right? Because hey, I slept with this guy, I didn't really think about it too much. Let me just pop a pill, let me sort it out.
Hmm.
Rather than okay, I need to be a bit more I don't want to say conservative because people think I'm being political, but a bit more conservative in how I pick my man
Hmm.
and a bit more picky about it in a more fundamental sense, because this could be the father of my children.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's enabled more hedonistic whim. Am I saying that women shouldn't have hedonistic whim? Of course you should. Like that's fucking fine. But to understand the general consequence
Yeah.
of what that of having that ability is insane. Jordan B. Peterson alludes to it a lot better than I do. But with the ability to control that as your ability to control the population, as well as your ability to make more stupid choices.
Yeah. Louise Perry talks about this very well. She has a book called The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, and
Yeah.
she puts it brilliantly. She actually, I don't know if you've seen that, she did a debate against, not a debate, but a conversation with Bonnie Blue, and it's like polar
Huh?
opposite people, like her, who was very Louise Perry, who was very much someone who, when she was younger, she worked in a rape crisis center, and
Fuck.
she's very conservative in her views now, just through research of wow, more freedom for women in terms of sexual endeavors didn't actually make women happier or more safe.
Or
Um,
better.
yeah, she's great. What else did I want to look at? So, health and fertility issues. People try but can't conceive, even with medical help. IVF and other treatments are costly, emotionally draining, and don't always work. Another thing with fertility issues, actually, which is probably what we should speak about as people who help people with their health, is
Mm.
even obviously a society that are sicker because we're overweight, we're inactive,
Yeah.
we don't get the right nutrients into us. That all plays a part in conceiving as well. I've had at least I remember over the years at least 4 or 5 people that I worked with who came to me, and them and their partner were trying to conceive, and they started weight training for the first time, and after a couple of months they got really strong, they lost a lot of weight, they felt great, and wow, oh my god, Carl, we've after getting pregnant, I've never been so happy. It's
It's
funny,
true
isn't it?
though.
Yeah.
It's true. That's the thing. And like with the ease of access for shittier food in society, it does lead to a massive detrimental in terms of your health. And if people think that that just means how you look and not your internal health and your internal function, you've got it twisted. I'll give you a very simple example. Female bodybuilders, right? When they get ready for a prep towards a show, a lot of the coaches don't look after them post show. The women miss their periods, they can have infertility issues, all sorts, right? Now, people go, well, bodybuilding is healthy. No, bodybuilding is just a very fucking unhealthy, right? You're getting your body to a level of leanness that it cannot sustain for more than a few hours, right?
Yeah.
And it's trying to fight to keep its muscle, trying to, drop as much, tissue and water as possible. It's not a healthy state to be in for a very long period of time. And you can see the knock-on effect that that has on women post-show. And a lot of bodybuilding coaches don't actually have post-show protocols in place for females.
Yeah. Like
And it causes
anything
them
where
to
you
fall.
lose your period isn't health.
No, in the moment you start losing your period is the moment you know, okay, something's fucking wrong.
Mm.
Plain and simple, or I'm pregnant,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So it's one of those things where people kind of misconstrue like, okay, health is like I'm in shape. No, health is your mental and physical state, right? Is it good, right? Can you eat healthily? Do you know what health looks like? And the biggest problem with regard to the health side of things is people now say, I'm being healthy, I'm on a diet.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You're just being healthy. You're not on a diet. You just stop eating fucking McDonald's every fucking day. You're
Mm.
not on a diet, mate. You're changing the way you're eating. This is healthy. People confuse and conflate. Oh, I'm getting healthy now. Why? I'm on a diet, man. I'm training. It's like, that's what you should be doing.
Mm. Last question I have for you. Do you think society unfairly judges people who don't have children even when it wasn't their choice?
Yes.
Or even if it was their choice?
Yes.
Yeah. I want
100%.
because I
I
wanted to
think,
make it a fair balance as well because, obviously I would be pro family. I think people having families are great, but also I don't think there should be any judgment on people who didn't have families.
yeah, because you don't know why, right?
Yeah.
And this is the thing is, well, on the other end, right? You're seeing so many, travel blogs and stuff being like, I don't have kids, so I can do this.
Yeah.
Just as bad
Yeah.
as someone on the other end of the spectrum. Well, I've got kids, so I don't travel, and that makes me better than you
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm losing
Or
kids.
they're like, "Oh my God, you don't have kids. Why don't have kids?"
Yeah, like, oh, you can't believe you don't have kids. It's like, you know what? Maybe I didn't want them,
Yeah.
and that's actually okay. There's people in there who do not want them.
And even worse, maybe I couldn't have them.
Maybe I couldn't have them, or maybe I have some seriously traumatic experiences that have led me to not have kids because I do not feel that I'm in the space or ability to actually
That's
repeat that trauma
very
cycle.
very true. That was actually one of the categories that I didn't actually mention was trauma experience can all have
Yeah.
an impact on people not having children.
100%. And you can't judge someone for not having kids, but you also can't judge someone for starting a family.
Exactly.
The problem is that Spider-Man diagram, where they were pointing at each other like,
Yeah.
aha.
Yeah.
It's like that's the issue. It's like, no, you're more than entitled to do what you want, but do understand that you'll derive a huge sense of fulfillment and purpose from having a family.
Yeah.
But if you can't, or if you don't want to, that does not mean your life is devoid of purpose and fulfillment.
Yeah.
You can find it everywhere. Life in and of itself is there for you to take. It's there
And
for you to enjoy.
I think when we talk about population decline, I think it's very important then that like we don't focus. It's hard not to focus on it, but I think not pointing blame or responsibility on the individual, but rather the collective of the country, the society. It's like,
Exactly.
okay, population decline is a very serious threat. And that's something that we should probably look into in regards to, okay, what are the societal issues that are causing us to have less and less children? But that doesn't mean blaming an individual for not having children, whether that was voluntary or
You're
involuntary.
right. You're totally right. And the reason why you can't go blame an individual is because why is it a repeating pattern with data points for millions of people across the world?
Yeah,
So what? You're going to say, because a million people across the world, I'm going to blame one person for the fact they didn't want to have kids or they did.
yeah,
No, that doesn't make any sense because how the hell are you getting these data points if it's not from a plethora, a big test pool? So you can't go, this person doesn't want a kid. They're an asshole. This person wants to have kids. Oh my God, they're so trapped. Not true, right? Why is it that population is declining on the whole? It's not just because one or two people are choosing not to have kids.
yeah. It's not about personal choice. It's about
Exactly. It's
yeah,
not just necessarily about personal choice. It's also about, well, do you know that probably the majority of the population, especially with regard to the housing market and the cost of living, etc., feel they're stuck between a rock and a hard place? You know how many people probably want to have kids?
yeah,
So many, but they feel like they can't. And it's not due to lack of education. It's not due to stupidity. It's due to being put in a position where they're compromised. And then by the same token, on the other end, with people who don't want to have kids, right? You can't have people who are very old school in their way of thinking saying, well, that's the wrong way to live your life. No, it's not. Not at all. It's not the wrong way to live your life because your life is lived on your terms. You can't aim at an individual and fire. That is just not fair. That is not right.
Yeah.
That's not balanced. You've got to be able to actually look at it from both ends and understand that, look, everyone's got an outlier, right? And you've got, your generalities here, like in the middle, and then you've got your extremities on the end. And those extremities aren't people trying to cause or destroy more often than not. They're just people who think a bit differently.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to think a little bit differently. But if you look at the overall overarching thing, it's like, okay, why is the population declining? Well, what about people who want to have a family but can't? Due to infertility or due to the fact that IVF may be really expensive or all these sorts of things. But you have to have a look at the generalities of the situation, which is, yeah, women are, and I said this a long time ago on one of our pods, which is women are the baseline measurement for a good society. If you can start to see that women do not want to have kids, they're the test for whether society is good or not men. Men are not the test as to whether society is good or not. Women are. Right? Women have that power, right? And if a woman says, I don't feel comfortable raising a family here, it's not her fucking fault, mate. Have a look at the society she's involved in. What's she afraid of? Why doesn't she feel she can rear her children here? You know what I mean? So it's a bigger thing than, oh, we can blame an individual. We can point a finger. Bullshit. No, we can't. That's just not true.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. He's been Ryan, the Springbok. I've been Carl, the Shamrock. And we will see you next week for more conversations and more existential crises about society. All right, Ryan, when will you still be in the same country by next week?
I will still be in the Scandinavian tundra, my good sir. I will be here for the foreseeable, training jets, trying to get big and building the business.
All right. Until next week. Good luck.
Until next week, man.